One of the biggest mistakes people make when they want someone to like them is focusing entirely on the outcome. They start thinking about what to say, how to behave, how to appear more impressive, and what they can do to make another person develop feelings. The problem is that the moment you become obsessed with controlling someone's response, you stop being present in the actual connection. You are no longer asking whether you genuinely enjoy talking to this person. You're asking whether you're winning their approval. That is a completely different mindset. Real confidence begins when you stop treating another person's feelings as something you have to control. You can be interested in someone. You can hope they like you. You can enjoy their company. But you cannot manufacture genuine feelings inside another person, and you don't need to. Your responsibility is to become a person you respect, build your character, develop interests that actually matter to you, learn useful skills. Take your responsibilities seriously. Keep promises you make to yourself. Become comfortable expressing your opinions without needing everyone to agree. And learn to accept that sometimes people won't choose you. That last part is important. Rejection can feel personal, but attraction is not a measurement of your worth. People have different personalities, preferences, circumstances, and priorities. Someone not returning your interest doesn't automatically mean you lack something. It simply means the connection isn't mutual. And when you understand that, you become less desperate to perform. You don't need to pretend to be more confident than you are. You don't need to manufacture a mysterious personality. You don't need to constantly prove how interesting you are. You can simply be present. That doesn't mean you stop improving yourself. Improvement is valuable, but improve because you want a stronger, healthier, more capable life, not because you need another person's approval to feel worthy. There is a major difference between confidence and performance. Performance asks, what do I need to do so they like me? Confidence asks, can I be myself while respecting the other person's choice? Performance is exhausting because you have to maintain an image. Confidence is more stable because it comes from knowing who you are. And self-respect also changes how you handle attention. If someone shows interest, appreciate it without immediately making them the center of your world. If someone becomes less interested, don't immediately assume that your entire value has disappeared. Stay grounded. Keep living your life. Continue working toward your goals. Continue spending time with people who matter to you. Continue developing yourself. Your identity should be larger than one interaction. This also makes conversations more natural. When you're not desperately trying to impress someone, you can actually listen. You can laugh without worrying whether the joke was perfect. You can admit when you don't know something. You can disagree respectfully. You can allow a conversation to end without assuming something went wrong. That is what genuine confidence looks like. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't pressure anyone. It doesn't manipulate emotions. It simply creates a person who is comfortable with themselves. And that is where the rest of the journey begins. First, become secure in who you are, then learn how to connect with others without trying to control them. Once you stop trying to control whether someone likes you and start becoming comfortable with who you are, the next step is learning how to make another person feel genuinely heard. This sounds simple, but it is one of the things people get wrong most often. Many people listen only long enough to prepare their next response. Someone shares a story, and immediately they are thinking about what they should say next. Someone expresses an opinion, and they are already preparing their counter-argument. Someone talks about an interest, and they are searching for a way to connect it back to themselves. That isn't really listening. Real listening means giving another person enough attention to understand what they are actually saying. You don't need to dominate the conversation. You don't need to constantly demonstrate how intelligent, funny, or impressive you are. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask a genuine question and allow the other person to continue. If someone talks about something they care about, be curious. What made them interested in it? How did they discover it? What do they enjoy about it? What have they learned from it? These aren't tricks. They are ways of discovering another person's perspective. And there is an important difference between genuine curiosity and using questions as a technique to create a particular emotional response. If you're asking questions only because you want someone to become attached to you, you're still trying to control the outcome. Instead, listen because the person is worth understanding. That shift changes the entire interaction. You begin noticing small details. You remember something they mentioned earlier. You recognize what matters to them. You understand their opinions instead of simply waiting for your opportunity to speak. And when someone realizes that they are actually being heard, conversation often becomes more comfortable. But listening doesn't mean agreeing with everything. You can hear someone's opinion and disagree respectfully. You can say, I understand why you see it that way, but I look at it differently. You can ask another question instead of immediately arguing. You can admit that you don't know something. You can change your mind when new information makes sense. That is confidence. You don't need to win every conversation to prove your intelligence. In fact, constantly trying to win can make communication exhausting. If every discussion becomes a competition, neither person is really connecting. They're defending positions. The goal should be understanding, not domination. And this becomes especially important when you're talking with someone you find interesting. Don't turn the interaction into an examination where you're constantly asking yourself, did I say the right thing or do they like me? Those questions pull your attention away from the actual person. Stay present. Listen to the words. Notice the meaning behind them. Respond naturally. Let the conversation breathe. Sometimes there will be pauses. That's normal. You don't need to fill every second with another question or statement. Sometimes the conversation will be exciting. Sometimes it will be ordinary. Sometimes two people will discover that they have a lot in common. Sometimes they won't. All of those outcomes are normal. And if the other person isn't interested in continuing the conversation, respect that. Genuine connection cannot be created through pressure. Listening also means noticing when someone wants space. That is where this principle connects to the next stage. Emotional stability. If you can listen without constantly worrying about the outcome, you become calmer. You stop treating every interaction as a test of your worth. You aren't trying to manage another person's feelings. You're simply learning who they are and allowing them to learn who you are. That is the foundation of meaningful communication. Once you learn to listen instead of constantly trying to impress, another quality becomes essential: emotional stability. Because genuine connection becomes difficult when every small change in another person's behavior controls your emotions. Think about what happens when someone takes longer to respond than you expected. Your mind starts creating explanations. Maybe they're losing interest. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe they're talking to someone else. Maybe you should send another message. Within minutes, uncertainty becomes a story, and the story creates an emotional reaction. This is where emotional stability matters. You cannot control how quickly another person responds. You cannot control their mood, their schedule, their preferences, or what they are thinking at every moment. But you can control what you do with uncertainty. You can pause. You can avoid making assumptions. You can continue with your own responsibilities. You can allow the situation to develop naturally. That doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means caring without losing yourself. There is a major difference between having emotions and being controlled by them. You can feel nervous without becoming desperate. You can feel disappointed without becoming bitter. You can feel excited without immediately becoming dependent. You can care deeply while still maintaining your balance. That kind of stability creates trust. People generally feel more comfortable around someone who can communicate honestly without turning every disagreement into a crisis. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to hide your opinions. You simply learn how to express them without trying to punish, intimidate, or control the other person. If something bothers you, communicate it clearly. If you made a mistake, acknowledge it. If you need clarification, ask rather than inventing assumptions. If someone tells you something you don't like, listen before reacting. And if you're angry, give yourself enough time to calm down before saying something you'll regret. A pause can protect a relationship from a reaction that would have lasted only a few seconds, but created damage that lasted much longer. Emotional stability also means understanding that rejection is not an emergency. Someone can say no. Someone can lose interest. Someone can decide they don't want a relationship. You may feel hurt, and that's normal. But you don't need to turn that pain into resentment or revenge. You don't need to prove that they made the wrong decision. You don't need to manipulate them into changing their mind. Respect their choice and protect your own dignity. That is strength. And the same principle applies when someone shows strong interest. Don't immediately abandon your own life because you're excited about another person. Continue your routines. Continue your goals. Continue your friendships. Allow the relationship to develop at a healthy pace. Intensity is not always the same thing as depth. Sometimes people mistake emotional highs and lows for powerful connection. But healthy relationships are often built through consistency, trust, communication, and respect. You don't need emotional chaos to feel that something matters. You need stability. And when you become emotionally stable, you become less focused on controlling the outcome. You can enjoy the connection without constantly calculating where it's going. That is when confidence becomes natural. After learning to build genuine confidence, listen with real attention, and manage your emotions without letting them control you, the next principle becomes clear. Build a life that doesn't depend on another person's attention. This matters because attraction can become unhealthy when one person becomes the center of your entire world. You meet someone you like, and suddenly everything revolves around them. You wait for messages. You change your schedule. You stop focusing on your own responsibilities. You begin measuring your day by how much attention you received. That isn't connection, that's dependence. A healthier approach is to have a life that already has meaning before another person becomes part of it. Have goals, develop your skills, take your responsibilities seriously, spend time with friends and family, explore interests that genuinely matter to you, learn things simply because you want to learn them, create routines that make you feel productive and grounded. The purpose isn't to appear busy or important. Don't pretend you have a life just to make someone think you're more desirable. Actually build one. When you have your own direction, your interactions become more natural. You aren't desperately searching for someone's attention because you already have meaningful things happening in your life. You can enjoy talking to someone without needing to talk all day. You can appreciate their presence without making their attention the source of your confidence. You can be interested without abandoning your priorities. And you can accept that sometimes two people simply aren't compatible. That last part is important. A meaningful life protects you from taking every rejection as a judgment of your worth. Someone may not return your interest. That can feel disappointing, but it doesn't erase your abilities, your friendships, your goals, or your future. You remain a complete person. This is also why independence should not be confused with pretending not to care. You don't need to ignore someone, delay responses deliberately, or act emotionally distant to appear confident. Those are performances. Real independence looks much simpler. If you're available and want to talk, communicate honestly. If you're busy, continue what you're doing. If you need time for your responsibilities, take it. If someone needs space, respect it. There is no need to turn normal boundaries into psychological games. And having your own life also makes it easier to discover whether a connection is genuinely healthy. Instead of constantly asking, how do I make this person like me? You can ask, do we actually enjoy communicating? Do we respect each other? Do our values fit? Do we feel comfortable being ourselves? Those questions shift the focus from winning someone over to understanding compatibility. That is a much healthier foundation. You should never have to abandon your identity to maintain someone's attention. If a connection requires you to stop being yourself, neglect your responsibilities, or constantly prove your worth, something is wrong with the foundation. A healthy connection should allow both people to remain individuals. You can care about someone and still care about your own future. You can value another person's presence without making them responsible for your happiness. You can enjoy connection without losing your independence. And when your life has its own purpose, you bring something more valuable into every relationship. Stability. You aren't asking another person to complete your life. You're inviting them to share a meaningful part of it. And once you have built your own life, developed emotional stability, and learned to communicate genuinely, there is another principle that cannot be ignored. Respect freedom and boundaries. Because no matter how strong the connection feels, another person's feelings and choices still belong to them. You can be interested in someone without believing they owe you attention. You can hope a connection develops without assuming it must. You can enjoy someone's company without treating their attention as something you are entitled to. That distinction separates healthy attraction from manipulation. A lot of people become frustrated when they don't receive the response they expected. They start looking for ways to change the other person's mind. They may think about creating jealousy, deliberately withholding attention, making the other person anxious, or using psychological tactics to produce a specific reaction. But that isn't genuine connection. It's an attempt to control an outcome. And control creates pressure. If someone is interested, you don't need to force the situation. Give the connection room to develop naturally. If they want to communicate, communicate. If they want to spend time together, enjoy the time. If they need space, respect it. And if they aren't interested, accept that answer. That doesn't mean you have to pretend rejection feels wonderful. It can hurt. You can feel disappointed. You can wish things had turned out differently. Those feelings are normal. But emotional maturity means you don't turn disappointment into entitlement. You don't punish someone for saying no. You don't repeatedly pressure them. You don't try to make them feel guilty. You don't treat their boundaries as obstacles that you need to overcome. You respect their decision and maintain your own dignity. That is a much stronger form of confidence. The same principle applies to your boundaries. You are allowed to have limits too. You don't have to answer every message immediately. You don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to remain in conversations that become disrespectful. You don't have to abandon your responsibility simply because someone wants your attention. You can communicate your limits calmly. You can say that you need time. You can say that something makes you uncomfortable. You can decide that a particular situation isn't healthy for you. Healthy boundaries aren't about controlling another person. They're about controlling your own participation. That's an important difference. You cannot decide what another person feels. You can decide what you will accept. You cannot force another person to communicate. You can decide how much effort you're willing to invest. You cannot make someone choose you. You can choose whether to continue pursuing a connection that isn't mutual. This is where genuine confidence becomes visible. A confident person doesn't need to manipulate another person's emotions to feel powerful. They can accept freedom on both sides. They understand that a meaningful connection has to be voluntary. Both people should have room to say yes. Both should have room to say no. Both should be able to express discomfort. Both should be able to maintain their individuality. And both should be able to walk away when the relationship isn't right. That freedom doesn't weaken connection. It makes connection more honest. Because when someone chooses to be around you freely, you know they're there because they genuinely want to be, not because they were pressured, manipulated, or psychologically cornered. So don't confuse persistence with pressure. Don't confuse confidence with entitlement. Don't confuse attraction with ownership. And don't confuse psychological knowledge with permission to manipulate people. The healthiest form of attraction leaves both people with freedom, dignity, and choice. And now everything comes down to one final shift in perspective. After you have built genuine confidence, learned to listen, developed emotional stability, created a meaningful life, and learned to respect boundaries, you have to stop measuring your success by whether another person falls in love with you. That may sound strange considering the title, but it is one of the most important lessons about attraction. If your entire goal is to make someone love you, then you're still giving that person control over your sense of success. You begin analyzing every conversation, every message, every reaction, and every moment of attention. You start asking yourself whether you're doing enough to keep them interested, but there is a better question. Do we actually have genuine compatibility? That question changes everything. Instead of asking, how can I make this person choose me? You begin asking, do we communicate well? Do we respect each other? Do our values fit? Do we enjoy being around each other? Can we be ourselves without constantly performing? Now you're no longer chasing an outcome, you're discovering a connection. And that is healthier for both people because attraction cannot be guaranteed. You can be confident, respectful, interesting, emotionally mature, and still discover that another person doesn't feel the same way. That doesn't mean your efforts failed. It means attraction is personal. You cannot control another person's feelings, and you shouldn't want to. Imagine how different relationships would feel if people stopped treating attraction like something they had to win. There would be less pressure, less overthinking, less pretending, and less fear of rejection. You could simply meet someone, talk to them, learn about them, and discover whether something genuine exists. If it does, allow it to grow. If it doesn't, accept the reality and continue your life. That ability to accept reality is powerful. You don't have to chase someone who has clearly chosen distance. You don't have to convince someone that they should like you. You don't have to change your personality because someone didn't respond the way you hoped. You don't have to become colder after rejection, and you don't have to become desperate after receiving attention. Stay grounded in both situations. If someone chooses you, appreciate the connection. If someone doesn't, respect their choice. Your identity remains intact either way. This is where self-respect reaches its strongest form. You stop seeing another person's affection as proof that you're valuable. You recognize that your value existed before the relationship and continues after it. Your goals still matter. Your friendships still matter. Your character still matters. Your future still matters. Your growth still matters. Romantic connection can add something beautiful to your life, but it should not become the foundation of your identity. And when you stop chasing the outcome, you become more capable of genuine intimacy. You can communicate honestly because you're not constantly calculating whether your honesty will make someone stay. You can express interest without becoming dependent. You can disagree without fearing abandonment. You can give someone space without assuming the connection is over. You become capable of choosing as well as being chosen. That is the difference between attraction and desperation. You aren't asking, how do I make them fall for me? You're asking, are we good for each other? That question protects your dignity and theirs. So don't spend your energy trying to control another person's heart. Build yourself, communicate honestly, respect freedom, and let compatibility reveal itself naturally.